Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Any doubts, any questions from the previous class? Anything? Hanji. Sorry? Yeah. Mahajanpadej. Again, that is so his question is that, guys, settle down. So his question is that there is a huge gap between two urban civilizations, and why is it so? And that question, frankly, we do not have very good answer for that. But we can just assume here is that the information from the first urbanization, that information as the civilization Harappa declined, in generation that information declined. So now things have to start from like very basics. It has to start from zero. So Harappan civilization was a very prosperous civilization, but after that, when civilization declined, so for example, when generally things decline in modern times, there is a continuity. We often see a continuity. Here, the continuity is perhaps in the sense of from mature Harappa to late Harappa, then to early Vedic age. There is continuity in artifacts, but जो एक civilization के लिए जो perhaps शायद information है, that information was lost, and now the civilization again has to start from the very basic. So that is the best logical answer we can provide. But frankly, this is one of those questions which does not have a very good answer. Any other doubt? Hanji. Dharma Sutras are part of Dharma Shastras. There is like Dharma Sutra is a subset of Dharma Shastras. So Dharma Shastras talks about much. Dharma Shastras are talk about lot of stuff. So it can talk about society, it can talk about economy also. At times it can talk about polity also. But Dharma Sutras are mainly focused on a person. So individualistic orientation जो है, like morality from a person perspective. That is the main focus of Dharma Sutras. हाँ जी. ओके सो सैक्रिफाइस का मतलब ये मत समझ लो कि सैक्रिफाइस जिस तरीके से हम आहुति देते हैं. डू नॉट कंफ्यूज बिटवीन सैक्रिफाइस एज एन आहुति. व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट ऑफन वी ट्राई टू use contemporary things and then we try to like use the same cheez aisa kuch ho. It's not about ahuti, but sacrifice basically means that a type of ritual here, and the purpose of that ritual here is that chariot race mein jo king ka chariot hoga, that is going to emerge victorious. Any other question? So in any case, in last class we talked, Hanji. ये तो हमने लास्ट क्लास में डिस्कस किया था. आई थिंक लास्ट टू लास्ट क्लास में ये हमने डिस्कस किया था कि हम फॉर एग्जांपल लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स वी कैन मेंशन. जैसे वी कैन टॉक अबाउट द अर्बन फीचर्स ऑफ इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन. जैसे हमने अर्बन फीचर्स देखा था, सबसे पहला क्या प्लान्ड सिटी है, प्रॉपर रेक्टेंगुलर पैटर्न है, रोड्स आर क्रॉसिंग एट ईच अदर एट 90 डिग्री. मेनी सिटीज हैव दिस फीचर इवन टुडे. सिमिलरली अर्बन जो अर्बन सेटलमेंट है, दे हैव लॉट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट इनटू हाइजीन, क्लीनलीनेस, water supply, water sewage treatment, trash collection, lot of the. हाँ, तो हम क्या करेंगे? So for example, the question, the first part will be that you are going to write about the urban features and you are going to try and compare that with modern urbanization. You are going to just mention that like these features are even part of some of the cities. But इसका जो conclusion होगा, जो question का main body तो यही होगा कि आपको urban features हड़प्पा के लिखने हैं. And you have to just here and there mention that, okay, these are also features of modern urbanization. So even thousands of years ago, people were following same type of urban setup. But in many ways, they were better than us. That can be a conclusion. And you can pinpoint few things, like you can talk about some modern urban problems. And you can talk about, just for example, sanitation as an issue or hygiene as an issue. That is a serious issue in modern urbanization. You can talk about that how sanitation, hygiene was even better. There was a lot of investment into public infrastructure, right? तो ये कुछ कुछ चीज़ें आप एक कंक्लूजन में, कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क में लिख सकते हो. बट क्वेश्चन बहुत सिंपल है, दैट आप हड़प्पा के फीचर्स लिखो एंड जस्ट हियर एंड देयर मेंशन इफ यू हैव अ स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल. जैसे प्लांट सिटी, आप चंडीगढ़ का एग्जांपल दे दो. तो इफ यू हैव things here and if you have specific examples, just mention it. Even if you do not have, that is totally fine. Just here and there mention it that even today we use very similar features, like lot of similar features. Hanji. No, it is not. So question is mythology part of history? Mythology cannot be considered as part of history. Right, so history and mythology should be separated. But at the same time, in the very first class, I told you that even mythological texts are useful in knowing about history. Just for example, let's say the story of Draupadi or the story of Sita. That actually can tell you what type of society we are living in. Sita, for example, when she has to go for that examination, that she has to prove her purity, now that actually tells you that what type of societal setup you are talking about. So mythology has a lot of input in historical development, that what type of society, what type of polity, or for example, let's say when the character of kings are portrayed and the power of kings are portrayed, that tells you about the political setup you are living in. So and at the same time, the tribes and the places like rivers, mountains, all of those things are mentioned. So that, of course, does tell you a lot of information about ancient times. So, but these are inputs. The stories are not part of history. That should be very, very clear, that stories are not considered as part of history. But those stories and the input from those stories can tell a lot about the society we are living in. Right? Just say, I will give you a very good example here, and this is debatable. This is the opinion of a personal historian. One of the historians feel that Ramayana was compiled later compared to Mahabharata. And the reason is because we do know that position of woman declined later. So for example, in Mahabharata, Kunti had sons with different persons, different gods. Similarly, Draupadi entered into polyandry, right? Draupadi has many husbands. But in Ramayana, Sita has to actually go through this entire purity examination, right? She has to prove her purity. So in fact, it shows that woman position has declined in Ramayana. So this actually became a basis by, again, just the opinion of a personal historian, that there is a chance that Ramayana may have been compiled later compared to Mahabharata. But of course, whatever our traditional narrative is, that Ramayana is much more older than Mahabharata. So ये हमारा जो traditional narrative है ये है. So my limited point here is that जो mythological texts हैं, they cannot be considered history. Maybe some part of it, for example, let's say if you're talking about Mahabharata, maybe Kuru clan had a fight over some issues. Maybe it was part of oral tradition. And later, of course, it became very popular and later it was compiled. So that is a very separate issue. तो उसका जो historicity है, उसके पास हमारे पास बहुत ज़्यादा proof नहीं है. तो कोई भी चीज़ का proof, पहले हमको क्या चाहिए? Proof चाहिए. Proof in this, for example, Mahabharata has lot of this element of chamatkar and jadoo and like ये सारी चीजें तो हम ऐसे ही accept नहीं करेंगे. Any text which mentions things like that, we are not going to accept that. We have to believe here that things how they are today. Past में भी ऐसे ही थे. अभी भी जो लोग चमत्कार claim करते हैं, बस वो claim करते हैं. ऐसे चमत्कार होता तो नहीं है. तो we have to assume things like that. तो इसीलिए they are very good source of knowing about what type of society, what type of polity, what type of economy we are talking about, but they cannot be considered as a work of history. In fact, in the first class I told you that the first work of history from subcontinent region can be called Raj Tarangini, which was compiled in 11th century. Apart from that, all the previous texts, these are work of literature, these are work of mythology, but even then, they are very useful to know about history. There is a common question that where goddesses worshipped in later Vedic period. Without any doubt, इसमें कोई doubt नहीं है. Goddesses were worshipped in later Vedic period. इसमें कोई question नहीं है. It has elements of chamatkar. Yes, I know that. Exactly. So that is correct. So that is a debate in history. History optional अगर आप पढ़ोगे तो ये question होगा. Even Raj Tarangini has elements of like based on folk tales and all. But despite that, it is a very good work which talks about the political history of Kashmir, like which dynasty is ruling Kashmir. So despite its limitation, in fact, that is also a debate among historians, that can Raj Tarangini be considered as a work of history. राइट. सो बट ठीक है, ये आपको जीएस में जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. मतलब जीएस के लिए कि राज तरंगिणी वर्क ऑफ हिस्ट्री क्यों है या क्यों नहीं है, वो बड़ा ही एक डीप क्वेश्चन है जो जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. बट इट कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ फर्स्ट वर्क ऑफ हिस्ट्री डिस्पाइट इट्स लिमिटेशन, and it was compiled much later, like in early medieval period, not in ancient period. Anyways, in last class I was talking about later Vedic age, and I told you that the term Jan is very important. Jan basically means tribe. Similarly, some places you will find the term Pur. Now Pur is basically, for example, a lot of towns have this Pur, Rampur, और जो भी places हैं बहुत बार Pur होता है. So a lot of towns are known from Pur, but Pur in early Vedic age, for example, is a dwelling unit. It is not a city per se. कि ऐसे एक established city है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. So it is a dwelling unit. Dwelling unit means that people are shifting. As people are shifting, the place also shifts. But in later Vedic age, जो Jan term है, that Jan term expands to the term Janpad. So for example, about 800 or 700 BC, the term Janpad comes into existence for the first time as part of Yajurved. And so Janpads basically, I told you in the last class that now Aryans have established themselves into a particular territory. There is a concept of territorial chiefdoms rather than dwelling units. Now you have territorial chiefdoms, that this particular region belongs to one particular tribe. And yahi jo Jan hai, they became Janpad, and the Janpads became Mahajanpad. And now here is a good thing. So the next theme I'm going to talk about is Mahajanpad period. And Mahajanpad period often historians use from 600 BC to 300 BC for Mahajanpad period. So give this heading. The two types of developments I'm going to talk about here. The first development is the political development. So for example, some important features of these important kingdoms, where exactly they are, who are important names here, like one perhaps name, or even बहुत सारे cases में नाम भी याद रखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. But here and there, few important kings are mentioned in many texts. I'm going to talk about that first. Second, I'm going to talk about the religious development which occurred during this period of time. In the last class, I already told you that in later part of later Vedic age, there is a reaction against Brahminical domination, right? That reaction does not have to come from, let's say, the lower Varnas, but it actually came from Kshatriyas themselves, and even among some Brahmins, that this focus on ritual and sacrifices and how Vedic literature was interpreted, that was not liked by many people, many scholars, and because of that, there is a reaction. And one of the consequences of that reaction is compilation of Upanishads. However, it should be very clear that not all Upanishads are compiled as a reaction against that. Many Upanishads are compiled by Brahmins also. But there is a reaction against Brahminical domination. So one reaction consequence, एक consequence क्या है? That there is some sort of voice within Hinduism itself, if I can use the word here. Hinduism as a word, for example, the term Hindu comes from Persian inscriptions, that when Darius attacks India, I will talk about today, Persian invasion, and he calls people who live beyond Indus River as Hindus. So the term Hindu comes from there, and it meant everyone who is living in this Indian subcontinent region. So it did not originate, the term did not originate as a religious term. In fact, in past classes also I have told you that the term religion and the term dharma frankly are not very same. So for example, when I am saying that Ashoka patronized Buddhism, that does not mean that Ashoka का एक religious identity है कि वो Buddhist है. So religious identity, even though is important, but it is not as important as what it is today right now. So the term religion and dharma are different from each other. Anyways, that is a separate issue. So one of the reaction is that there is a reaction within the Hindu fold, within the Aryan fold, and another reaction is that there is a reaction within the Aryan fold, but now some scholars or some religious sages, they started speaking against Brahminical practices, and they started speaking against this supremacy of Vedas, which was very popular in the society. And such type of जो religious development है, this religious development is called Nastic school. So I'm very sure you know the word Astic and Nastic. Now, generally when we use Astic and Nastic, we basically mean someone who believes in God and someone who does not believe in God. Astic is a person who believes in God. Nastic is a person who does not believe in God. Atheist जो हम बोलते हैं. But when I'm using the term Astic and Nastic in this context, it does not actually have to do anything with God. It has to do with Vedas. So someone who believes in Vedas, he is an Astic or she is an Astic. Someone who does not believe in Vedas is Nastic. So there are many Nastic schools of philosophies which evolved. So in Astic school, one development is compilation of Vedas. And in Nastic school, emergence of new religious ideas. That happened during Mahajanpad period. Two most famous, of course, I'm very sure all of you already know that, which is Buddhism and Jainism. Now Jainism is of course quite older because Jainism का जो पूरा tradition है that there are 24 Tirthankars, there are 24 sages which contributed to Jainism. And Mahavir जो हम पढ़ते हैं, who is contemporary of Mahatma Buddha by the way. So Mahavir is the 24th and last Tirthankar. Okay. So Buddhism and however जो Mahavir का because his contribution to Jainism is immense and lot of his sayings are compiled. So that is why Jainism, Mahavir is such an important name within Jainism. And contemporary of Mahavir of course is Mahatma Buddha, and both of them by the way belong to Kshatriya clan. And Mahatma Buddha also was very much interested in, for example, he saw sorrow everywhere, that everywhere people are very dukh hai, pure sansar mein dukh hai. And he wanted to find the answer to that question, that why is it so? So he went to many gurus, many sages. He was not very satisfied. Then he started meditating. He went to Bodh Gaya. He started meditating under a tree. He felt that maybe by this meditation he is going to attain some information, and that information will be helpful in knowing about that why there is so much sorrow in this world and what is the meaning of life and all those things. And he almost killed himself in the process, but later he has an enlightenment, and as part of this enlightenment he comes to certain conclusions that why there is sorrow in the world. And then he comes out, he gives his first sermon, and gradually he starts preaching to the northern part of the country, and Buddhism becomes again a very, very important religious idea at this period of time. So many contemporary kings themselves patronized Buddhism. They invited Buddha to their kingdom. And often, so because kings को हमेशा एक चाहिए होता था कि they required some religious authority. So Buddha was invited to different kingdoms and he preached to kingdoms. So जो Buddhist ideas हैं, lot of these ideas will be discussed in detail in art and culture classes, because religion, I told you in the first class itself that two major themes, जो literary development है और जो religious development है, I am not going to cover in ancient history classes. I am mainly going to cover social, political and economic history. जो cultural history है, that includes religion also, and जो literary development है, that will be discussed in art and culture classes. But nonetheless, so Buddha, for example, he realizes that जो दुख का जो main कारण है, that is our desires, that we have unlimited desires. And when you extinguish your desire, when you overcome your desires, then you actually become happy. And he also realizes that you have to adopt a medium path, जो middle path जिसको हम बोलते हैं, that you do not have to go to extremes. For example, you are going after material goods, कि आपको ये चाहिए वो चाहिए, जितना ज़्यादा जाओगे उतना ज़्यादा आपको unhappiness मिलेगा. And by the way, इसका एक scientific basis है कि जो happiness है वो ना एक बड़ा important molecule होता है हमारे शरीर में जिसको हम बोलते हैं dopamine. डोपामाइन का एक सिंपल सा लॉजिक ये होता है हमारे शरीर में, that the more dopamine there is, the more it wants. So happiness, for example, when Buddha says that you have unlimited desire and that desire is the main cause of our sorrow. So that not only has a philosophical basis, it has some scientific basis also. But anyways, so Buddha says that, and how to extinguish your desire, for that he comes up with his path. He tries to enlighten people that if you follow, and by the way, at the same time, he also believes that you do not have to follow extreme asceticism, which was very popular in which was very popular as part of Hindu religion, that you go to Himalaya and you completely renounce the world. You do not have to do that also. Buddha believes that that is also not required. So extreme asceticism जिसको बोलते हैं, that सब कुछ renounce कर दिया, आप बिल्कुल जंगलों में चले गए हो, पहाड़ों में चले गए हो, कुछ नहीं खा रहे हो, ये भी करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Buddha basically believes that you have to follow a middle path, and how you can follow a middle path, for that he comes up with a lot of ideas. Those ideas become very popular. So of course Buddha also faces a lot of criticism from the existing religious fold, but despite that Buddhism becomes very popular. Jainism focuses upon non-violence. Non-violence is a very, very important aspect of it. Jainism, for example, believes that everything has a soul. And Jainism, so for example, Jainism does not want to hurt even any type of living being. It does not have to be like human beings or animals, but any type of living being. So Jainism and Buddhism में जो एक fundamental difference होगा, that Jainism does believe in extreme asceticism here, but Buddhism does not. That is one of the fundamental differences between Buddhism and Jainism. So anyways, Jainism also becomes popular, not as popular as Buddhism, but it does become popular. Even after death of Mahavir, and Buddhism also becomes popular even after death of Buddha. So, and by the way, Buddha के साथ एक interesting चीज ये है that Buddha is not interested in many types of questions. He does not, in fact, entertain a lot of questions. For example, question like, is there a God? Buddha is not worried about that. So what? Even if there is, Buddha does not have to do anything with it. Similarly, what is the meaning of life? He does not consider this to be an important question. राइट. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल बुद्धा का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है बड़ा क्लियर है कि जैसे आप डॉक्टर के पास अगर जाओगे और आपको कुछ हो गया, लेट्स से फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू हैव हर्ट योरसेल्फ, एंड डॉक्टर के पास जाओगे, डॉक्टर आपको मेडिसिन देगा, बट अगर आप डॉक्टर से ये पूछने लगोगे कि मेरे साथ क्यों हुआ है डॉक्टर साहब, तो डॉक्टर क्या बोलेगा इसका आंसर देने के लिए मैं नहीं हूँ. तो ये जो बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस है, बुद्धा रिजेक्ट्स लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, दैट दीज क्वेश्चंस आर नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट. There are certain important questions. Let's answer those questions. Lot of questions are not important. In any case, so these are two very famous Gnostic school of philosophy which developed in this time. But there are two other schools which developed in this time, and these two schools are not very popular, but you should know about that. So first school is called Charvaka school. So I am talking about Gnostic school here. So I'm mainly talking about religious development. And religious development can be divided into two parts: Astic and Gnostic. So this Astic school, of course, evolved into compilation of Upanishads, and in fact it led to evolution of many great philosophical traditions. For example, you have this philosophical tradition called Sankhya and Yoga. बहुत सारे philosophical traditions है आस्तिक में, जैसे सांख्य philosophy है, योग है, योग the same योग which we practice, but it is much more than that. You have Mimamsa. So Mimamsa is divided into two parts: Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa. जो उत्तर मीमांसा है, that is also called Vedanta. न्याय and Vaisheshika. Sorry? हाँ, मैं बता रहा हूँ कि ये जो, so what I'm saying here is that a religious development occurs. That religious development can be divided into two categories: Astic school of philosophy and Gnostic school of philosophy. The Astic school of philosophy led to compilation of Upanishads. So Astic school of philosophy, दोनों में fundamental difference क्या है? The Astic school of philosophy believes in supremacy of Vedas, right? The Gnostic school of philosophy does not believe in supremacy of Vedas. So Astic school of philosophy led to compilation of Upanishads, and in later period, and by the way I'm talking about many 200-300 years later, I'm talking about, let's say, 2nd century BC or 1st century BC, all of these schools of philosophy developed: Sankhya school of philosophy, Yoga school of philosophy, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Nyaya, Vaisheshika. And all of them believes in supremacy of Veda, but there is a very good chance that some of these schools of philosophy do not believe in God. For example, Sankhya does not believe in God. So for Sankhya school of philosophy, it can be considered, in traditional definition, it is an atheistic school of philosophy. That it does not believe in God, but it is still a Astic school of philosophy, that it does believe in supremacy of God, Veda. Now, this is one thing should be very clear, that when I'm using the word God, then I'm talking about creator of universe. So God, for example, can have a lot of meanings. There is a capital God, God, and then there is a small God, God. So small God, God will be जो normal deities होते हैं, like Indra and Agni. These are small God, God. But जो capital God, gods हैं, that these are creators or caretakers or destroyers of the world. So for example, it can have two meanings in monotheistic religion. It can be one true God, right? So for example, जो Judaism, Christianity और Islam में है, that one true God. Or in many religions, by that includes Hinduism, there is a trinity of gods. For example, Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, जो पूरा trinity of gods का पूरा example है. So these are capital God gods, that these are creators of universe as well as taking care of it, as well as perhaps responsible for the destruction of the world. So when I'm using the word God here, I basically mean as creator of the world. So Sankhya, for example, does not believe in creation, that God created the universe. Similarly, Jainism also does not believe in creation, that God created the universe. In Jainism can be considered, by the way, the term God is there, but more than God, जो Tirthankars हैं, and there is a term for Tirthankars which is called Jeen. Jeenas are more important than gods themselves. And Jainism believes that universe has always existed and it is always going to exist. Right? So there are many interesting developments which occurred at this point of time. Just as Sankhya believes in two forces of nature. One is called Purush, another is called Prakriti. One of them is changing, another of them is unchanging. एक जो proper जो एक sage होगा, वो realize करेगा पुरुष और प्रकृति दोनों को एक साथ हम integrate कैसे करेंगे. जो योग philosophy है, योग philosophy talks about various types of exercises, but that does not have to be just bodily exercises like all the asanas we do. It also includes breathing, and it also includes lots of other things. So yoga as a philosophy versus yoga as a practice which is prevalent today, there is significant difference here. Mimamsa focuses mainly on rituals, sacrifices. Vedanta focuses mainly on spiritual knowledge. So Upanishads and Vedantas are very much integrated with each other. Nyaya is a logical school of philosophy. So Nyaya, for example, believes in logic. जो logic philosophy में जैसे बहुत सारे लोग logic पढ़ते हैं. So Nyaya is a very logical school of philosophy. And Vaisheshika is also very interesting because Vaisheshika tries to answer what universe is made of, and it comes to a conclusion that universe is made of atoms. Everything is made of atoms. इसको बहुत बार atomic theory of universe बोलते हैं. So this is a religious development or philosophical development which occurred, which may have started in Mahajanpad period, but it continued, and by almost 1st century BC, all of these religious developments were in place, perhaps with the exception of Vedanta and Mimamsa. They were developed much later, right? I do not remember the name of all these sages, but Sankhya, for example, was propounded by Kapil Muni. Yoga was propounded by Patanjali. Vaisheshika was propounded by Karnad. I do not remember like name of all the 6 philosophies. But anyways, I'm just mentioning it here. I'm not going to dictate it here. I'm just mentioning it here that this is an important historical development which occurred at this period of time. Similarly, in Gnostic school of philosophy, you have four major schools. If you write down, you can write down. Like if you want to write down, आप एक बस heading दे देना religious development in ancient India. Religious development in ancient India, and you can mention that all the religious ideas and philosophical ideas can be categorized into 2 categories, Astic and Nastic. In Astik, you have these 6 schools of philosophy, and in Nastik, you have these 4 schools of philosophy: Buddhism, Jainism, Charvaka, and Ajivika. Charvaka, Ajivika have not survived, but Buddhism and Jainism definitely have survived even today. Right? So details about all the schools of philosophy, major features, that is a topic of art and culture. I have just mentioned it here as an important historical development. So anyways, let's talk about these 2 schools of philosophy, Charvaka and Ajivika. I have not talked about them. So Charvaka school of philosophy ke jo founder hai, he is often called Charvaka himself. That is why it is named after him. There is another very famous person called Ajit Kesakambalin, who is contemporary of again Buddha, who is often associated with Charvaka school of philosophy. बहुत बार इसको लोकायत भी बोलते हैं. Should not be, there should be no confusion. Lot of times it is also called Lokayat philosophy. Now, Lokayat philosophy or the Charvaka philosophy hai, any text of this philosophy has not survived. Whatever has survived is that these philosophies are mentioned in Buddhist text, Jain text, Hindu texts. And often they are mentioned because they are ridiculed, they are criticized. So for example, many Buddhist texts criticize the ideas of Charvaka or the ideas of Ajivika. So their original text has not survived. Whatever has survived is a criticism of these schools of philosophy. But even with that criticism, we do know that they were frankly very well developed school of philosophy. For example, Charvaka is a completely materialistic school of philosophy. Materialistic school of philosophy means that Charvaka is not interested in all these concepts of afterlife or karmic theory. It does not believe in that. So Charvaka is frankly very scientific. Now, when I'm saying that Charvaka is ridiculed, because there is a very famous line from Charvaka philosophy. And that line is Yavat Jitva Sukham Jivet Rinam Kritva Ghritam Pibet. Now what it means is that as long as you are living, khushi se raho, like live happily. Even if you have to take money, borrow money, drink ghee. मतलब घी पियो, भले पैसे लेके पीना पड़े, घी पियो लेकिन खुश रहो. तो जो पूरा फोकस है इसका, ये फोकस ये है कि बेसिक जो अगला लाइन है दैट टेल्स अस कि कोई आफ्टर लाइफ होता नहीं है. ये जो पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ पुनर्जन्म एंड आफ्टर लाइफ है, बिकॉज समथिंग विच कैनॉट बी प्रूव्ड. Charvaka is a very scientific in that sense, that if something cannot be proved, something which we have no way of knowing, then why to bother about it? Right? So it is criticized a lot by all the existing religious ideas, Buddhism, Jainism, even Hinduism. But at the same time, even with this criticism, we do realize that it was a very important philosophy and it had proper scientific orientation. Even though it is a materialistic school of philosophy, it believes in material world. कि जितनी चीज जो भी आपको खुशी देता है, whatever you want to do that. Ajivika is also very, very interesting. So Ajivika, for example, believes that Ajivika के जो founder हैं, उनका नाम है Makhalli Gosala, and Makhalli Gosala is also contemporary of Mahatma Buddha and Mahavir. And Ajivika जो है, that also is very interesting because it tells us that there is no free will in this universe. Everything is already predetermined. And it does not have to be, for example, that does not mean that there is some set of gods or a god who has decided it. It is irrespective of it. Ajivika believes that हमारे पास कोई free will नहीं है. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. इस philosophy को हम बोलते हैं fatalism या fatalistic school of philosophy. That whatever is going to happen will happen. You do not have any free will. So this idea also became very popular. Ajivika as a जिसको हम बोलते हैं determinism या fatalism, lot of words you can mention that. So these are important religious developments which occurred at this period of time. जो last class में हमने end करा था, that there is a reaction against Brahminical domination, and that reaction manifests into two schools, Astic school and Nastic school. Astic school has development of all these schools of philosophies. Nastic schools has development of all schools of these philosophies, right? So this is one aspect of ancient history. Another aspect is, let's talk about political development. So give this heading Mahajanpad age. किसी को कुछ पूछना है इसमें, whatever I have discussed here? Like anything you would like to ask? Nyaya was founded by, so Amardeep has answered to who founded all the schools of philosophy. Nyaya was founded by Gautam. Uttar Mimamsa was followed by Vadrayan. Purva Mimamsa was followed by Jaimini. So Kapil, Patanjali, Purva Mimamsa by Jaimini, Vedanta by Vadrayan, Nyaya school of philosophy by Gautam, Vaisheshika by Kanad. Different sages, they came up with these different philosophical ideas. So anyways, I have not talked about any of the schools of philosophies in detail, but Sankhya school जो है उसके कुछ features आपको पता होने चाहिए examination perspective से. जैसे Sankhya जो है, Sankhya believes in two forces of nature. One is called Purush, another is called Prakriti. And by the way, this is very interesting that similar type of philosophy exists in other parts of the world also, in different form. For example, in China, there is a very famous philosophy which talks about yin and yang, that there is one force of nature called yin and another force of nature called yang. And yin and yang basically present male and female forces of the nature. So, not exactly yin and yang here, but there is a similarity that there are two forces which exist, Purush and Prakriti, and a proper sage is going to understand the relationship between Purush and Prakriti. But it does not believe in creation of the world by some creator. It does not believe in God per se. Yes, you should remember the name of these sages for examination perspective. Hanji, sorry, somebody had a question. हाँ, न्याय का मतलब ऐसे जस्टिस होता है, बट न्याय एज अ स्कूल ऑफ फिलोसफी जो है इसका जो मेन फोकस है वो लॉजिक पे है. कि जैसे आप कोई भी कंक्लूजन अगर आप लेके आते हो तो कंक्लूजन जो है लॉजिक पे बेस्ड होना चाहिए. कि अगर आपने मान लो कुछ देखा भी नहीं है, जैसे नॉलेज गेन करने के क्या तरीके होते हैं, दैट इफ यू हैव सीन थिंग्स, इफ यू हैव हर्ड थिंग्स, राइट. बट एक जो तरीका होता है लॉजिक इन्फेरेंस का. तो न्याय का बहुत फोकस है कि लॉजिकली हम कंक्लूड अगर कर सकते हैं तो वी कैन एज्यूम दैट दिस इज राइट नॉलेज. तो एक जो फोकस है इन ऑल स्कूल्स ऑफ फिलोसफी इज दैट हाउ डू यू अटेन राइट नॉलेज. राइट नॉलेज अटेन करने के तरीके क्या है. And Nyaya, for example, does talk about logic inference. So anyways, do not worry, these ideas will be discussed in detail in art and culture classes. Hanji. Philosophy. It does. It does. It does. No, so again, salvation here is basically, it has nothing to do with, for example, overcoming this cycle of birth. और जो salvation का meaning है वो बहुत meaning अलग-अलग है. जैसे Buddhism also does not believe in, initially it does not believe in any type of God or any type of afterlife. Later it does, by the way. Mahayana form of Buddhism it does. But salvation का meaning जो Buddhism में है, salvation का meaning जो Hinduism में है, there are differences here. Maybe for personal, finally, like for example, as a person, जो भी आपको एक तरीके से, I'm not going to use the word happiness, but the focus here is that some sort of personal liberation, that even in this collective world, a sense of personal liberation. So I cannot, like for example, claim myself to be an expert on Ajivika philosophy. So जो philosophical discussion है, I cannot answer that question. कि for example, why to go through all the pain if everything is collected? That is a very frankly like deep philosophical question, and I will have to read more about it frankly to answer that question. I got your question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the answer to that question. That is what I'm saying. That I'm not sure answer to that question. Which Vedas? Which three major dogs? Hmm. So it talks about supreme nature, like one supreme. I will not use the word God per se, but one supreme force, supreme being जो हम बोल सकते हैं. हाँ जी. I will not, so what is mentioned versus what is practiced, there will be a difference here. So even though what he's saying is that in Upanishads, for example, a lot of times one supreme entity is mentioned, that this supreme entity is responsible for creation of universe as well as, and all the forces, for example, the trinity of gods, they are representation of this one supreme entity. So yes, that is there as a philosophical idea, but as a practice, how religion evolved, it evolved as a trinity of gods, right? Anyways, give this heading Mahajanpad age, bracket में लिख लेना 600 BC to 300 BC. Give the heading sources. What are the sources of Mahajanpad age? What are the sources? Now here is a good thing that अभी तक वैदिक एज में हमारे पास सोर्सेस क्या थे, सिर्फ वेदास थे. You only had one written record. But now in Mahajanpad age you actually have lot of other texts, and those texts can be very useful because हम अब चीज़ों को मिला सकते हैं, मैच करा सकते हैं, then we can come to conclusion. So जो written sources का जो significance है, that is going to increase in Mahajanpad age. So for example, you have, apart from Puranas or apart from epics, you also have many Buddhist texts, you also have many Jain texts, you also have texts such as Ashtadhyayi written by Panini. Now Ashtadhyayi is a book of grammar, but at the same time it does talk about lot of stuff like about economy or about political setup, weights, exchanges. It talks about lot of things. So that is why even Ashtadhyayi is a very, very important source. So you can mention it in bullet points. Epics such as Mahabharat, Ramayan. Epics such as Mahabharat, Ramayan. Mahabharat, Ramayan. Upanishads. 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 Puranas and Dharma Shastras. Puranas and Dhamma Shastras. Buddhist literature. Buddhist literature. तो देखो जो बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर है, जो सबसे इनिशियल बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर है, इट वाज कंपाइल्ड एज 3 डिफरेंट बुक्स कॉल्ड त्रिपिटक. आप लिख सकते हो बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर कॉल्ड त्रिपिटक. त्रिपिटक, सूत पिटक, विनय पिटक एंड अभिधम्म पिटक. So for example, Sut Pitak talks about personal sayings of Buddha himself. Vinay Pitak has many philosophical discussions about Buddhist ideas. And Abhidhamma Pitak basically talks about the rules monasteries have to follow. जो भी Buddhist sages and monasteries हैं, the rules and regulations they have to follow. Similar, and by the way, these Pitaks themselves are further divided into many books. Those books are called Nikayas. So for example, there is a very famous Nikaya called Digha Nikaya, which is part of Sut Pitaka. तो आप ये भी लिख सकते हो. These Pitaks are divided into books called Nikayas. These Pitaks are divided into books called Nikayas. So जैसे सूत पीटक जो है, that has 5 Nikayas. One of the major Nikaya is Digha Nikaya. Digha Nikaya is a very, very important source to know about history of this period of time. Similarly, Jain literature. जैन लिटरेचर, इसमें एक लाइन बस लिख लेना. दे आर कलेक्टिवली नोन एज सिद्धांता और अगम. दे आर कलेक्टिवली known as Siddhanta and Agam. जैसे बहुत सारे बुक हैं, भगवती सूत्र एक बहुत फेमस बुक है इस टाइम पे, या परिशिष्ट पर्वन करके एक बुक है विच इज अ जैन टेक्स्ट. It was compiled at this period of time. So these are some important sources to know about Mahajanpad period. Then you also have Ashtadhyayi by Panini. Ashtadhyayi by Panini. So this was also compiled about पाणिनि का जो एग्जैक्ट टाइम पीरियड है उसको पिन पॉइंट करना मुश्किल है. देर इज अ रेंज हियर दैट ही मे हैव लिव्ड इन इधर 5th और 4th century BC. 5th or 4th century BC. Right on. Panini was a grammarian. Panini was a grammarian who belonged to Gandhar country of ancient India. Gandhar country of ancient India. He studied at University of Takshila. He studied at University of Takshashila. Takshashila. He studied at University of Takshashila. His work Ashtadhyayi, write down, his work Ashtadhyayi is one of the most brilliant intellectual achievement of ancient world. His work Ashtadhyayi is one of the most brilliant intellectual achievement of ancient world. Brilliant intellectual achievement of ancient world. His work Ashtadhyayi is one of the most brilliant intellectual achievement of ancient world. Even though it is a book of grammar, it deals with places, people, customs, coins, weights and measures. Coins, weights and measures. So you have many written records, and apart from that, archaeology of course remains a very, very important source. Both archaeology and epigraphy remains an important source. तो आप बस एक लाइन लिख सकते हो, archaeology and epigraphy. Archaeology and epigraphy. Write down next bullet point. From 600 BC, from about 600 BC, from about 600 BC onwards, 600 BC onwards, agricultural surplus, regular taxation, extensive use of iron, led to emergence of territorial kingdoms, In one line you can also write, the term Janpad is nowhere mentioned in Rig Veda. The term Janpad is nowhere mentioned into Rig Veda. The term Janpad is nowhere mentioned in Rig Veda. It emerges in Brahman literature. Again, this Brahman is different from the Brahman. Remember Brahman from Vedic literature. One of the part of Vedic literature is called Brahman. It emerged in Brahman literature around 800 BC. Around 800 BC. 800 BC. These Janpads, in the course of time, grew. These Janpads in the course of time grew, and some of the Janpads became Mahajanpads. Some of the Janpad became Mahajanpad. Some of the Janpads became Mahajanpad. Ancient texts mention 16 Mahajanpads. Ancient texts mention 16 Mahajanpads. Ancient texts mention 16 Mahajanpads. Okay, so let's look at these 16 Mahajanpad. You have, as far as you have a kingdom called Kamboj kingdom, right? Then you have Gandhar, which will lie in modern day Pakistan. अभी जो हमने तक्षशिला और पाणिनी की बात करी, so Panini belonged to Gandhar. Even today there is a village in Pakistan which is considered the birthplace of Panini. So Gandhar country, these are the two Mahajanpads, very, very like far away from other Mahajanpads. By the way, just because I'm mentioning Mahajanpads does not mean that other kingdoms are not there. Other kingdoms are definitely there. They are Janpads. I'm only talking about Mahajanpads. Then you have, of course, many Mahajanpads. You have a Mahajanpad in the Deccan region which is called Asmaka. In central India, you have a Mahajanpad called Avanti, one of the powerful Mahajanpad. So apart from these four Mahajanpad, most of the Mahajanpads are very close to each other. For example, you have Matsya kingdom, you have Kuru kingdom. Kuru are still very powerful, not the most powerful. जैसे लास्ट क्लास में मैंने डिस्कस किया था कि जो कुरु, जो भरत और पुरु का अलायंस है, they were very powerful, not as powerful as it was like few hundred years ago, but they did still, it was a very, very important kingdom. Panchal is again a very important kingdom. Surasena is again a very important kingdom. Chedi kingdom, Vatsya, Koshal, Malla kingdom, Kashi, Vajji, जिसका capital वैशाली है, Magad, Ang, all of these are Mahajanpads which emerged. So you can easily see that most of the Mahajanpads are concentrated in the Ganga Yamuna Doab region. And the reason is very simple, because this is agriculturally, this is a very, very fertile land, and agricultural surplus, regular taxation. You also have many iron mines, not accessible to all of the kingdoms, but to some of the kingdoms, right? So all of these Mahajanpads emerged in about 600 BC. These Mahajanpads had two type of political setup. Either they were monarchies. Monarchies basically means that there is a king who is absolute. King's authority is absolute. Or they emerged into oligarchies. Now oligarchy is some sort of rule by group of elites, that there is no one absolute authority, but the kingdom is ruled by a group of people. That does not mean that this group of people are democratically elected, right? That also does not mean that these are republics. So for example, a lot of times Vaishali is considered the oldest republic. कि Vaishali जो है oldest republic है. So oldest and it should be very clear that republic or democracy are two different ideas. When I'm saying democracy, I'm talking about democratically. Polity class हो गई है. ये explain करने की जरूरत तो नहीं है ना कि republic ठीक है. So republic and democracy are different ideas. So Vaishali is not considered, first of all, if it is mentioned that Vaishali is the oldest democracy, that will be not correct. If it is mentioned that it is the oldest republic, that is correct, but with a proper caveat here. That yes, the ruling class was elected, but jo elected jo ruling class hai, that was also done by the elites of the society. So Vaishali was ruled by many clans. Many clans lived in the region of Vaishali, and these clans elected their head, and the council basically, a council ruled the Vaishali Mahajanpad, right? It was a very, of course, Vajji jisko bolte, Vaishali is the capital. The Mahajanpad was Vajji. So anyways, these are the Mahajanpads which emerged at this during this period of time. Magad gradually expanded its territorial extent. Magad emerged as the most powerful Mahajanpad, and historians have mentioned many reasons that why it occurred. So for example, one of the reasons it occurred is that because Magad lies in a very fertile plain compared to even other areas. जो पूरा region है, even today, जो agriculture even today is a very major economic activity in Bihar. So Magad lied in a very fertile plain, and agricultural surplus, even though there are at other places it is still there, but Magad में और भी ज़्यादा है. पहला reason. Second reason, that Magad included region of what will be modern day Jharkhand. Jharkhand has a place called Chota Nagpur Plateau. Chota Nagpur Plateau has iron mines. So Magad, people of Magad were able to mine iron on a much larger scale. Now that played a very important role in agriculture also, and that played a very important role in weaponry also. So for example, you have iron based equipments, more agriculture, and you also have weapons based of iron. Similarly, because of iron, Magad, people of Magad were able to clear large tracts of forest. So more agricultural land, first benefit. Second benefit is that they also saw elephants, and they realized that elephants can be domesticated. So all of these other kingdoms have horses in part of their army, including Magad, but now Magad also has elephants as part of they have this extra advantage. The number of horses, aisa to India, because it's not a natural place for horses to emerge. Whatever horses are there, they came and then they were breeded here. So now Magad has this extra advantage that they have elephants. Another very important characteristic of Magad was that it was a monarchy. It was not an oligarchy. Now monarchy is important here, that because decision making is very smooth. There is one king, there is no conflict among people, decision making एकदम faster होगा. Monarchy के अपने benefit और नुकसान दोनों हैं. King अगर stupid हो तो क्या करोगे, right? तो but अगर king powerful है, king के proper ideas हैं, then because there is no opinion, बाकी के opinion का फर्क नहीं पड़ता. So anyways, and of course Arya Sharma mentions one more reason, that people of Magad, because they were Aryanized, or they became part of Aryan fold in the later period of time, in later Vedic age, and despite that they were seen in contempt, or they were seen with low esteem by other tribes. So they had more to prove to rest of the Mahajanpads that they are as powerful or perhaps even superior to other Mahajanpads. And they were more enthused for warfare because of that. So Magad gradually started expanding itself. For example, जो initial pass के जो महाजनपद हैं, like Ang kingdom was, Ang by the way is very same. If you remember Mahabharat, Ang का जो राजा है वो कर्ण है. If you remember the story of Mahabharat, that Ang belonged to Duryodhan, and basically when Karn challenges Arjun, then because Karn does not have any political kingdom, or he does not come from a royalty, so that challenge is not accepted by Arjun, and then Duryodhan gives him his kingdom, that this kingdom belongs to you. Anyways, so Ang, this is the same Ang, right? It again lies in Bihar. So Magad basically first occupies Ang, Kashi also. Magad faces a lot of problem in occupying Vaishali, because Vaishali was highly fortified, and Vaishali also had a very large standing army. Now here is a very interesting story I am going to tell you. Again, this is only a story, it is not a work of, ऐसा कोई historical इसका basis नहीं है. That how Vaishali was finally captured, and it was captured by Ajatashatru, one of the kings of Magad. Now how Ajatashatru captures Vaishali? So the story goes something like this, that Vaishali developed a very weird tradition. And that tradition emerged because there was a girl named Amrapali who was very beautiful, and there were many suitors for her, like many people wanted to marry her. And because of that, a conflict started happening among different clans. There was some bloodshed, and people realized that why are we fighting, like over a girl? So let's make a rule that she is not going to become wife of one person, but she is going to become wife of the entire city. And a new position was carved called Nagarvadhu, and basically translates into prostitute. So Amrapali was declared, and she was in fact forced to become a prostitute by city, so that there will be no bloodshed among the people of city. And when that happens, Amrapali takes that insult. She realizes that she has to take revenge from the city which has forced her to do this. So many princes, of course, many princes and commanders used to go to Amrapali, and in drunken state, she used to collect information about secret passages of Vaishali, and she passed that information to Ajatashatru. And with all this information equipped, Ajatashatru then attacks Vaishali, completely destroys it, and it becomes part of Magad kingdom. So that story is part of, again, this is only a story. And however, later Amrapali realizes that because of her revenge, she has caused so much destruction, and she regrets that. And when Buddha is passing through Vaishali, she becomes part of Buddhist Sangh. In fact, she is one of the first women who is allowed to enter Buddhist Sangh, because before that, women were not allowed as part of Sangh. So Mahatma Buddha did not want women to be part of Sangh. It was on the request of Anand, whose disciple, his favorite disciple, that Buddha allowed it. So Amrapali is one of the first persons in the time of Buddha himself that she becomes a Buddhist sage. Anyways, so this is only a story, part of Buddhist text. We do not know any historical basis of that story, but it is again a very popular story. I'm very sure people from Bihar know about this story. ये मैंने बचपन में पढ़ा हुआ है, मैंने बचपन से ये स्टोरी मैंने पढ़ा हुआ है. Anyways, so Magad emerges very powerful, but there are other powerful kingdoms also. For example, Avanti was very, very powerful. So was Koshal. Koshal was also very powerful. So there are few Mahajanpads which were very powerful. But in the course of time, all of the Mahajanpads became part of Magad itself. So I'm going to talk about some of the early dynasties which ruled Magad. But even before that, let's write few things about these Mahajanpads, and one or two interesting features or some names which perhaps you should know. Not in detail, बहुत डिटेल में जानने की जरूरत नहीं है, इतना कोई एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करता, but few important features of Mahajanpad you should know. So I'm going to use a alphabetical order rather than geographical order. I'm going to mention all of these Mahajanpads in alphabetical order. So the very first is Ang. Ang. Right on here. It included modern day Bhagalpur and Munger in Bihar. It included modern day Bhagalpur and Munger in Bihar. It was situated near Champa river. It was situated near Champa river. Champa. It was situated near Champa river. The capital city was also called Champa. The capital city was also called Champa. Was also called Champa. So Ang in fact was one of the first kingdoms which was annexed by Magad. Next is Asmaka. Asmaka is the southernmost Mahajanpad in the Deccan region. Asmaka. Inclusion in Aryan fold. There is a question by Swapnil that what does inclusion in Aryan fold mean? It has a very simple meaning. Is it only me or I think that AC नहीं काम कर रहा? नहीं कर रहा है? एक बार जरा देखना किसी admin team को. So anyways, Asmaka. Sorry, what was I mentioning? Okay, inclusion into Aryan fold basically means that Aryans, as they went to different part of the country, and by the way, this process occurred because we are only discussing this in one class, and we may think that all of this happened very suddenly. But you have to remember here that the development in last class, which I talked about, early Vedic age and later Vedic age, that happened in about 1000 years. It's a huge period. 1000 year बहुत ज़्यादा time होता है. So when I'm saying that inclusion in Aryan fold, it basically means that many people, many tribes accepted the way of Aryan religion. And by the way, the Aryan religion is not Vedic religion, for example, if I can use the word Vedic religion. But Vedic religion is not exactly the same when Aryans first came to the India. It also evolved because of interaction with many tribes. In the very first class I told you that lot of practices, for example, let's say phallus worship. Phallus worship is not, it is frowned upon by Aryans. But in later Vedic age, phallus worship and jo worship of Shiva hai, or jo Linga worship hai, that becomes of course a very prominent mode of worship. Right? So it does tell you that lot of interaction among jo early settlers hai, that is happening, and because of that many new ideas, religious ideas, cultural ideas are becoming part of Aryans. So as more and more people were integrated or they accepted the Vedic religion, that term basically means inclusion into Aryan fold. The question is, how far in the south did Aryans went? So in later period, for example, one of the topics I'm going to discuss will be Sangam age. They went the southernmost part of the country. So again, it's very, very important to realize that Aryans, when I'm saying, for example, Aryans went, if your question is Aryans as early migration, then forget south, they did not even go to north. If I'm talking about early Vedic age, they mainly settled in the Indus Valley region, jo Indus or uske tributaries hain. But in later Vedic age and even 100 years after that, forget about Aryan migration. Now we are talking about a group of people who have accepted this as their land, and now they are migrating because of perhaps increase in population or looking for opportunities. So in about 3rd century BC, they went to the southernmost part of the country. That includes Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, all of the regions. Anyways, Asmaka is the southernmost Mahajanpad. Ek line mein likh lena, it was situated near Godavari river. It was situated near Godavari river. It was situated near Godavari river, pura Godavari river. Its capital was Podana or Potali. Podana or Potali. At some places you will find that the capital of Asmaka was Pratyasthan. Pratyasthan is again in Deccan region, but that is actually not correct because Pratyasthan was capital to another Janpad, not Mahajanpad, But another Janpad which was very near to Asmaka, आप लिख सकते हो अगर आपको लिखना है. It was situated near another kingdom called Mulak kingdom. It was situated near another kingdom called Mulak kingdom, whose capital was Pratyasthana. Whose capital was Pratyasthana. It's same as modern Patan district in Maharashtra. Pratyasthana. So just say for example, I'm going to get this slide uploaded and I have taken this screenshot from one of the materials which is available on NIOS. If you look at here the capital of Asmaka kingdom, it is written Pratyasthana or Patan. But in Upinder Singh textbook, it is mentioned that it was Podana, and Pratyasthana was capital to Mula kingdom. Anyways, next, Avanti. 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 It was situated in Malwa region. It was situated in Malwa region. It had two capitals. Mahismati. It had two capitals, Mahismati. Exactly, Bahubali का capital यही था. It had two capitals, Mahismati and Ujjaini. Now, Mahismati is modern day Maheshwar district in Madhya Pradesh. Mahismati and Ujjaini. Ujjaini is modern day Ujjain. So Avanti in itself was divided by Vindhya mountain. आप लिख सकते हो. It was divided by Vindhya mountain. Avanti, the kingdom in itself was divided by Vindhya mountain. The kingdom was ruled by, write down, the kingdom was ruled by Pradyot dynasty. The kingdom was ruled by Pradyot dynasty. In fact, let me tell you another factual information here. So Avanti was so powerful that it directly challenged the authority of Magad. Magad already was extending itself. And one of the ruler of Magad, the son of Ajatashatru, his name was Udayin. Udayin ka jo Ajatashatru ka capital tha, that was not Patliputra, that was Rajgir, a place called Rajgir. So even today if you go to Rajgrihi or Rajgir, it is surrounded by hills. So those hills worked as a natural forts. कि आपको फोर्ट बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है, कोई भी आर्मी जो है हर डायरेक्शन से तो नहीं आ सकता. So Rajgrihi already was protected, but despite that Udayin was fearful of attack from Avanti, and because of that he shifted his capital from Rajgir to Patliputra. Now Patliputra has many benefits because Patliputra is surrounded by, even today Patna is surrounded by rivers. From all these sides it is surrounded by rivers. So there is a natural water fort, and in ancient times nobody had invested into navy per se. किसी के पास कोई naval army नहीं है इस टाइम पे. Naval army will be important in later period of time, but अभी navy नहीं है. So it had a natural water fort, and further fortification was done for Patliputra just to ensure that the capital city is protected. Right. So Avanti was ruled by Pradyot, and they ruled for many years. In fact, they were one of the last Mahajanpads which were integrated into Magad kingdom. Next is Chedi kingdom. Chedi kingdom. Write down. It lied in Bundelkhand region of central India. It lied in Bundelkhand region of central India. Bundelkhand region of central India. Its capital was Sothiwati Nagar. सोथीवती नगर इज मॉडर्न त्रिपुरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट, अभी भी त्रिपुरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट है, सोथीवती नगर. नेक्स्ट इज गंधारा. Now Gandhara, because it lied in the outer bastions of subcontinent region. Outer bastions means border pe. So whenever invasion, India was invaded from only one location, from this part. At any period of time, whatever invasion occurred, it occurred from northwest frontier. So Gandhara was captured, the first, for example, Gandhara was captured by Persian ruler Darius when he attacked India. And Gandhara became one of the provinces of Darius. And in fact, Gandhara was one of the most prosperous province for Darius, as it is mentioned in his own inscription. So anyways, I will talk about Persian invasion in today's class itself, but write down, it included modern Peshawar and Rawalpindi. It included modern Peshawar and Rawalpindi. Both districts are in Pakistan right now. It included modern Peshawar and Rawalpindi. Its capital was Takshashila. Its capital was Takshashila, which emerged as a major center of learning. Which emerged as a major center of learning. Major center of learning. इसी में एक लाइन लिख लेना. It was conquered by Persian king Darius. Persian king Darius. Persian king Darius in 6th century or 5th century BC. Exact timeline will be very difficult. In 6th or 5th century BC. Another kingdom is Kamboj. Give the next heading, next bullet point, Kamboj. So Kamboj basically lied in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. जैसे पाकिस्तान में एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट है हज़ारा डिस्ट्रिक्ट, अफगानिस्तान में एक रीजन है कफेरिस्तान करके. So this region of Hazara district and Kafiristan belong to Kamboj महाजनपद. आप लिख सकते हो. It included Hazara district in Pakistan. And Kafiristan region of Afghanistan. It included Hazara district of Pakistan and Kafiristan region of Pakistan. Sorry, Kafiristan region of Afghanistan. Next is Kashi. So capital of Kamboj was जो अभी modern Hazara in itself was capital of Kamboj. So capital of Kamboj was called Poonch, and Poonch will be what modern day Hazara जो अभी पाकिस्तान में भी है. It was also called, another name is Kapisi. Write down next Kashi. एक लाइन में लिख लेना बस. It was bound by Varun river and Assi river. It was bound by Varun river and Assi river. Because of that, its capital was called Varanasi. Its capital was called Varanasi. So ये modern बनारस जो है, a very very powerful Mahajanpad at this period of time was Koshal. So give the next heading. Koshal. Now Koshal power was equal to Magad at one point of time. So एक line लिख लेना. It was divided by Saryu river in two parts. It was divided by Saryu river in two parts. It was divided by Saryu river in two parts. Its capital was Shravasti. Its capital was Shravasti. Shravasti. Ayodhya and Saket. Ayodhya and Saket. Ayodhya and Saket were other important cities of Koshal kingdom. Were other important cities of Koshal kingdom. You see, there was a lot of conflict between Kashi and Koshal, but Kashi was later defeated and it became part of Koshal kingdom. Similarly, Koshal had conflict with Magad. At one point of time, Magad and Koshal had matrimonial relationship. One of the Koshal princes was married to Bimbisar. Bimbisar was a ruler of Magad. But at the same time, there was fierce rivalry. So for example, when Bimbisar, by the way, I'm going to talk about Bimbisar today. Bimbisar was killed by his own son Ajatashatru, and when that happened, Koshal broke off all the alliance with Magad, and later Ajatashatru attacked Koshal also and integrated Koshal kingdom as part of Magad. Next is Kuru. Kuru, right on here. It was ruled by Yudhithilla family. Yudhithilla family, who considered themselves to be descendants of Yudhishthir, Yudhishthir from Mahabharat, who considered themselves to be descendants from Yudhishthir. Their capital was Indraprasth. Indraprasth is what Delhi is. Indraprasth जो है Delhi है. So their initial capital was Hastinapur, which basically mean Meerut, modern Meerut. But Hastinapur witnessed flooding, and because of that, capital was shifted from Hastinapur to Indraprasth. So Indraprasth is what Delhi is. Magad, next is Magad. It originally included the region of Patna and Gaya. It originally included the region of Patna and Gaya. Later it emerged as the most powerful Mahajanpad. It emerged as the most powerful Mahajanpad. It was bound by, so its capital Patliputra was bound by, write down. Its capital Patliputra was bound by, and Patliputra was not the original capital. Its capital Patliputra was bound by Ganga, Son and Champa river. Ganga, Son and Champa river. I will talk about dynasties which ruled Magad in detail. Next is Malla kingdom. Write down. It had two major power centers. Two major power centers. Kushinara and Pava. Kushinara and Pava. So Kushinara is what Kushinagar is, and Kushinagar is the place where Buddha passed away, like a very famously known for passing away place of Buddha. And there is a very famous story here also, that Buddha, when he realized that he is going to die, and Anand basically requested Buddha, Anand is one of the disciple of Buddha, that you should go to some other city because Kushinagar is not the place where you should die. This is not a very prosperous city per se. So it is part of Buddhist legend. And then Buddha narrates him the story that at one point of time it was one of the most prosperous city. And in the course of time it declined, but it was a very prosperous city. And Buddha dies in Kushinagar. तो आप लिख सकते हो, Buddha passed away in Kushinagar. So Kushinagar is same as Kushinara, which we have written here. हाँ, उत्तर प्रदेश में. Next, Matsya kingdom. Matsya kingdom. It included Jaipur, Alwar and Bharatpur districts of modern Rajasthan. It included Jaipur, Alwar and Bharatpur. Jaipur, Alwar and Bharatpur of modern Rajasthan. Its capital was Viratnagar. Its capital was Viratnagar. Its capital was Viratnagar, which was named after the founder. Which was named after the founder. Which was named after the founder. So Viratnagar is what modern day Jaipur is. And Matsya kingdom, of course, is very, very important in Mahabharata, if you remember the story, if you know the story. That, for example, when Pandavas are in their 12th year of Vanvas, the 13th year they have to follow a thing called Agyatwas, that nobody has to know that where exactly they are. And they go to Matsya kingdom, who is being ruled by a king called Virat. So this Matsya kingdom in itself is of course a very popular story in Mahabharata. Anyways, the next is Panchal. Capital of Gandhar was Takshila. Next is Panchal. It lied in, write down, it lied in Rohilkhand region, Rohilkhand region, it lied in Rohilkhand region. It was divided in two parts by the river Ganga. It was divided in two parts. It was divided in two parts by the river Ganga. It had two capitals. It has two capitals, Ahichhatra and Kampilya. It had two capitals, Ahichhatra and Kampilya. And इसी में एक लाइन लिख लेना, the city of Kanyakubj, the city of Kanyakubj, which later is known as Kannauj, the city of Kanyakubj was located in this kingdom, was located in this kingdom, was located in this kingdom. So as of now they will be part of western Uttar Pradesh, जो पंचाल है. Shurasena, that is the next Mahajanpad. इसमें बस एक लाइन में लिख लेना, its capital was Mathura. Its capital was Mathura. It had close relationship with Avanti. It had close relationship with Avanti. Close relationship with Avanti. And the last two is Vajji. Vajji. Write down. It was in eastern India. It was in eastern India, which was ruled by a confederacy of 8 clans, which was ruled by a confederacy of 8 clans. There is another very famous Buddhist story that as part of Buddhist text, that Ajatashatru sends his commander to Mahatma Buddha to know about how to defeat Vaishali, that how Vaishali can be defeated. And when commander goes to him, Buddha basically tells him the strength of Vaishali. And he tells him that it is ruled by 8 clans, and he narrates and he writes praises for all these clans, that how they are able to come to a decision together. And he basically tells the commander of Ajatashatru that as long as they are doing that, no power can defeat Vaishali. So, commander of Ajatashatru takes a hint there that what you have to do, you have to create disunity amongst these different clans. And Ajatashatru works for that. Later, in fact, they are so disunited that when Ajatashatru attacks Vaishali, they are fighting among each other that how to defend Vaishali. So they are fighting कि वैशाली को defend कैसे करना है. In fact, there is another Buddhist story where Buddha is asked that where should he take his rebirth, and that is part of Mahayana Buddhism. And Buddha clearly says that I do not want to be part of any kingdom which is ruled by group of clans. He would prefer a monarchy because clans will always fight with each other. इनके बीच में कोई किसी भी टाइप का वो नहीं है, सामंजस्य नहीं है किसी भी टाइप का, एक कमिंग टू अ कंक्लूजन दैट इज मिसिंग. सो एनीवेज, राइट डाउन. It was ruled by a confederacy of 8 clans. The most powerful clan was Lichavi clan. The most powerful clan was Lichavi clan. The most powerful clan was Lichavi clan. The capital of Vajji was Vaishali. The capital of Vajji was Vaishali. At one point of time, write down, at one point of time, Vaishali was ruled by, Vaishali was led by, let's not use the word rule because that will mean that it is a monarchy, but Vaishali was led by Chetak. Vaishali was led by Chetak, who was brother of Trishala, and एक लाइन और लिख लेना, Trishala was mother of Mahavir. Trishala was mother of Mahavir. Trishala was mother of Mahavir. And write one more line here in Vajji itself. Chetak's daughter Chelana was married with Bimbisar, ruler of Magad. Chetak's daughter Chelana was married with Bimbisar, ruler of Magad. Ruler of Magad. Chelana was married to Bimbisar, ruler of Magad. And the last Mahajanpad is Vatsa kingdom. Now Vatsa kingdom should be known for a very, very interesting thing. Vatsa kingdom was ruled by a king called Udayan, not Udayin. Udayin is son of Ajatashatru, who is ruler of Magad. Vatsa kingdom was ruled by Udayan, and Udayan had a love story with daughter of Pradyut, whose name is Vashwadatta, and this love story is actually part of many, many texts which were compiled later. So for example, I'm going to talk about Harshvardhan in later classes. Harshvardhan is a ruler who ruled northern part of the country in 7th century. And Harshvardhan wrote 2 books called Priyadarshika and Ratnavali. In both the books, the love story of Udayan and Vashwadatta hai, that is the main theme. Similarly, one of the earliest Sanskrit dramatists, even before Kalidas. Kalidas is one of the great names as one of the great dramatists of Sanskrit literature. But even before Kalidas, there is another name called Bhas. Suna hai aapne? So Bhas was a dramatist who may have lived around 1st century BC. Exact timeline we do not know, but he may have lived around 1st century BC or even earlier than that. So Bhas also wrote a very famous play, Swapna Vaswadatta, where basically Udayan is dreaming about Vaswadatta. He does not know that who is this girl, and finally he goes on to find her. And so that is the plot of this story. So the reason I'm talking about Udayan and Vaswadatta, because the love story of these two is plot of many, many literary work which were compiled in ancient India. तो बस एक लाइन में आप लिख लेना. Vatsa kingdom was known for its fine cotton textile. Vatsa kingdom was known for its fine cotton textile. Fine cotton textile. Its ruler Udayan and the king of Avanti Pradyut and the king of Avanti Pradyot had rival relationship, however later daughter of Pradyot, Vaswadatta was married to Udayan, The love story between Udayan and Vaswadatta is main plot of three romantic dramas, Swapna Vaswadattam by Bhasa, Swapna Vaswadattam by Bhasa, and Priyadarshika and Ratnavali by Harshvardhan. Priyadarshika and Ratnavali by Harshvardhan. I will repeat, Bhasa is an ancient Sanskrit dramatist. He predates Kalidas. How do you know that? Because Kalidas, when he writes his book like Abhigyan Shakuntalam, he talks about in the very first page that he has lot of respect for Bhasa. So Bhasa already in the 1st century BC was very popular as a dramatist. Exact time period, exact location will be very difficult to pinpoint. Harshvardhan was a ruler who ruled almost entire North India for about more than 3 decades, and he also was a poet, and he wrote these 2 works, Ratnavali and Priyadarshika. And in both this work, Udayan is the main character, Udayan is the main hero. So anyways, this is about all Mahajanpads. Let's take a break here. After the break, I will talk about emergence of Magad and some of the earlier dynasties which ruled Magad. Anyway, so we find 2 main type of political systems which developed at this period of time. One is monarchy and another is oligarchy. Oligarchy is often called Sangh here, yeah, Gan Sangh. So Sangh should not be confused with Buddhist Sangh. That is a very separate topic. So you have either monarchy or you have oligarchy. Monarchy was basically hereditary rule, that there is a king who has the absolute authority. Oligarchy were those Mahajanpads or Janpads which were ruled by a group of people, group of elites. Many of times this group of people were elected. For example, in Vaishali, group of people who ruled, they were elected. And this is what republic is all about. In republic, you do not have any type of hereditary rule. You do not have any type of nominated rule. You have elected rule, right? So Vaishali ka jo ruling class hai, that was elected. But elected ka matlab ye nahi hai ki it was an election which included some sort of voting by people. It was done among the groups, these important clans themselves. So out of Mahajanpad, Vaishali is a very, very good example of oligarchy. But there are many other examples of oligarchies. And Magad is of course a very good example of monarchy. So these are 2 type of setups developed. Apart from that, what we can assume is that many other regions had tribal chiefdoms. So tribal chiefdoms, of course, ऐसा तो है नहीं कि खत्म हो गए. So many other regions had tribal chiefdoms. So just write down 3 type of political systems emerged. 3 type of political systems emerged. Monarchies. 3 type of political system emerged. Three type of political system emerged: monarchy, इसमें बस एक लाइन में आप लिख सकते हो, absolute authority of the king, absolute authority of the king, for example Magad is a very good example of monarchy. Oligarchy, these are often called गण और संघ. जो गणतंत्र वर्ड है वो यहां से आता है, सो गण और संघ. Rule by a group of people, rule by a group of people, for example Vajji. Democracy basically means rule of majority. Christian has this question, like he's asking the second time. So democracy basically means rule of majority, that there is an electoral process. In this electoral process सबसे बढ़िया ये होगा कि सब लोग वोट करें, बट सब लोग वोट करना है नया फिनोमेना है बाय द वे. इंडिया में ये जब हम आजाद, फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन वी गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस, फ्रॉम द वेरी स्टार्टिंग वी अडॉप्टेड यूनिवर्सल सफरेज, जिसको हम बोलते हैं, दैट एवरीवन इज गोइंग टू पार्टिसिपेट इन voting mechanism. But frankly, this is a very new phenomena. In many developed nations also, this universal suffrage actually started many years after India got independence. Right? So for example, in many cases, if you're not earning enough, or even women had not voting rights in some of the countries. So democracy basically means that normal people are electing their government. Whoever is going to get the most of the vote will emerge, is going to the rule. इसमें भी दो टाइप के सेटअप होंगे, वो डिस्कस आपको आप नहीं करा होगा तो करेंगे ही. एक होता है जिसको हम बोलते हैं प्रोपोर्शनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन, एक हम जिसको बोलते हैं फर्स्ट पास द पोस्ट सिस्टम. सो इंडिया फॉर एग्जांपल यूजेस फर्स्ट पास्ट द पोस्ट सिस्टम. व्हाट इट बेसिकली मीन्स इज दैट डजंट मैटर हाउ मेनी कैंडिडेट्स आर देयर. जैसे मान लो कि 5 कैंडिडेट हैं और 5 कैंडिडेट में 4 कैंडिडेट को मान लो 19.5% वोट मिला है एंड लास्ट वाले को 20% वोट मिला है. सो द 20% जो वोट मिला है, ही इज गोइंग टू इमर्ज victorious. It doesn't matter that 80% of the people have rejected that candidate. Okay, so that is called first past the post system. So the fundamental difference between democracy and republic is that while democracy is rule of majority and not exactly like 50%, in India it is not even 50%, but it is rule of majority. But the authority lies in the fact that majority of people have elected the government. While republic is first rule by election, so for example some sort of elected government, जो भी head of state है, that is elected. He is not nominated, he is not because he belongs to one particular family, but he is elected, right? First thing. Second thing, republic also means that welfare of all section of people. It does not have to be because majority is ruling, एक majoritarian elected government है, तो जो मेजॉरिटेरियन इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट है वो फिर क्या करेगा, उसका फोकस होना चाहिए कि हम मेजॉरिटी पे खाली फोकस करते हैं. whoever is going to vote for me, I should focus upon that. So republic also means welfare of all section of society. That is again a definition as part of political science. That so for example, lot of countries consider themselves to be republic. Say China also uses the word republic. North Korea also uses the word republic, which is very, again, very weird thing to do. But republic per se, the जो sense of जो word है, उसका meaning ये है कि you are going to take care of the people. So anyways, Vaishali is often called the oldest republic of the world, and the reason is very simple, because it was an oligarchy and the clans elected among themselves that who is going to become the ruling people. Let's say for whatever number of people, but who are going to be ruling, that occurred via some sort of election. And third is tribal chiefdoms. Now, tribal chiefdoms did not exist per se in Janpads and Mahajanpads. So I'm talking about apart from Janpads and Mahajanpads, जो बाकी के जो territorial setups होंगे, they may have been tribal chiefdoms. And give a last heading, and we will conclude with this topic of Mahajanpad, emergence of Magad. Emergence of Magad. There were, Shubham is asking, were there any other oligarchies? There were other oligarchies. In fact, in some cases, at one point of time, Koshal was an oligarchy, but later it became a monarchy. So, in many cases, we find that one of the Janpad or Mahajanpad, it was an oligarchy, but it became a monarchy, or vice versa. It was a monarchy and became an oligarchy. So, there are many such instances like that. Hanji. Mainly geography. So his question is that what are the parameters which decide a Janpad becomes Mahajanpad? So it's mainly geography, geographical territory जो है, जो expansion है. So for example, जो सबसे powerful है. That's a very good question because even in ancient text there is a debate. So for example, Ashtadhyayi talks about Mahajanpads. Some Pali text also talks about Mahajanpads, but there is a difference. Ashtadhyayi, the Mahajanpads which it considers to be Mahajanpads, and Buddhist texts which were written in Pali, by the way. Pali was an ancient language. So Pali text which mention Mahajanpads, and at some places there is some like exact वो नहीं है, congruence नहीं है. So people accepted Mahajanpad was a popular term and people used Mahajanpad as per their own understanding. But the most important criteria is geography and of course prosperity. That goes without saying. Anyways, आपका क्या था? What you were asking something? Later, without any doubt. So his question. So yes, Magad emerges as the most important Mahajanpad. All other Mahajanpad comes vanishes. So technically नहीं, technically छोड़ दो. Literally also that is correct. That Magad is the only remaining Mahajanpad once the Mahajanpad age comes to an end. So now it is no longer a Mahajanpad, it is an empire. So kingdom and empire make difference होता है. When I use the word kingdom and when I use the word empire, there are few differences. Empire will always include a much larger territory than kingdom. But ये quantify करना that like how much hectare is kingdom or how much hectare is empire, that's a very, I'm not going into that, मतलब वो करना भी impossible है. But an interesting feature of an empire will be that empire is going to rule directly a core area. That there will be a core area and then there will be a peripheral area. तो जो peripheral area है वहाँ पे जो political control है वो direct नहीं होगा. In peripheral area, you are going to find many smaller chiefs, autonomous chiefs, that they have to accept the authority of emperor, but at the same time in their day-to-day administration, they have a lot of autonomy. They perhaps have to pay regular taxation. They have to, from time to time, they have to assert their loyalty to the emperor. हो सकता है किसी celebration का part हो, किसी कुछ king बुला, हो सकता है कि एक time पे time बुलाते होंगे, right? तो ये जो है पेरिफेरल एरियाज हैं. तो एक एम्पायर में जो लेवल ऑफ पॉलिटिकल कंट्रोल है वो हमेशा डिफरेंट होगा. सो व्हेन आई एम सेइंग दैट मगध इमर्जेस एज द मोस्ट पावरफुल महाजनपद, नाउ आई एम नॉट गोइंग, फॉर एग्जांपल द नेक्स्ट थीम आई एम गोइंग टू डिस्कस विल बी once in next class will be Magad Empire. So I'm going to I'm not going to use the word Mahajanpad anymore. I'm going to use the word empire. So that is the first empire, first political unification of India which occurs with emergence of Magad as the most powerful Mahajanpad, and all of the territory of India was integrated as one political setup known as Magad kingdom, right? So by the way, in many texts, even before Magad, this was a desirable thing to do. So जैसे for example when we say that, आपने पता नहीं आपको पता होगा या भी नहीं, but जो concept of nation है, nation is a very new concept. Nation as a concept, nation state का जो concept है, that a particular territorial integrity, ये जो है ये this concept emerged in 18th century in Europe after French Revolution. or unification of Italy and Germany. The concept of nation state, frankly, is a very, very new concept. But at the same time, the term Rashtra is mentioned in Vedic literature. And in today times, nation का जो हिंदी translation हम पढ़ते हैं वो होता है राष्ट्र, right? But Rashtra basically in this case meant that many texts talk about unification of entire Jambu Dweep, जो आर्यावर्त region है, that is bound by Himalaya and Indian Ocean, that this should be part of one kingdom. And we find many instances like that, like not a lot. So Chandragupta Maurya does it, Ashoka further expands it, right? It is later done by Guptas, especially by Samudragupta and Chandragupta too, who took the title Vikramaditya. It was also tried by Harshvardhan. He tried to occupy southern kingdoms, but he failed. He was defeated by Pulkeshin, right? Similarly, at one point of time, Delhi Sultanate के भी जो कुछ rulers हैं, जैसे especially जो Muhammad bin Tughlaq है, he was ruling almost entire India. Similarly, Akbar was ruling significant part of India. Aurangzeb further expanded into Deccan region. Akbar was not able to emerge victorious in Deccan region. Marathas were ruling a significant part of India. तो ये जो पूरा का पूरा time period अगर आप देखोगे, so that this entire geographical territory of India as one nation is not a new concept. It is a very old concept, even though the concept of nation state in itself emerged in 18th century. So what I am mentioning a very limited point, that this entire geographical territory should be part of one kingdom. This is not a new idea. This idea predated even Mauryas. Even lot of texts which were compiled during Mahajanpad period, they talk about that this entire territory belongs as one Rashtra, one political or one geographical entity. So when I'm going to use the word Magad next time, it will not be Magad as a Mahajanpad, but it will be Magad as a empire. So anyways, emergence of Magad, write down. Magad emerged as the most powerful Mahajanpad because of following reasons. Magad emerged as the most powerful Mahajanpad because of following reasons. Because of following reasons. Following reasons. Write down in bullet points. It lies in extensive fertile plains of Ganga. It lies in extensive fertile plains of Ganga. Extensive fertile plains of Ganga. That meant ample of water resources and agricultural surplus. That meant ample of water resources and agricultural surplus. Agricultural surplus. Next, availability of iron from Chota Nagpur plateau. Next bullet point में availability of iron from Chota Nagpur plateau. छोटा नागपुर प्लेट्यू, इसको और एक लाइन इसी में लिख सकते हो आप. Iron tools were used for expansion of agriculture. Iron tools were used for expansion of agriculture. Clearing of forests. Iron tools were used for expansion of agriculture, clearing of forests, and iron weapons were used in warfare. Iron weapons were used in warfare. Iron tools were used in expansion of agriculture, clearing of forest, and iron weapons were used in warfare. Third, the first capital of Magad, Rajgrih, the first capital of Magad, Rajgrih, was surrounded by hills, which acted as natural fort, natural forts. The later capital Patliputra, the later capital Patliputra was surrounded by rivers which acted as water fort. Was surrounded by rivers which acted as water fort. Next, monarchy in Magad was a favorable attribute. Monarchy in Magad was a favorable attribute. Favorable attribute. The rulers were ambitious. The rulers were ambitious, pragmatic. Rulers were ambitious, pragmatic, and flexible. And flexible in their social cultural outlook. Social cultural outlook. Next, elephants were domesticated. Monarchy in Magad was a favorable attribute. The rulers were ambitious, pragmatic, and flexible in their social cultural outlook. Next, elephants were domesticated. Elephants were domesticated, which became a part of army. Elephants were domesticated, which became a part of army. Important ports like Tamralipti. Important ports like Tamralipti. Tamralipti is a port in Bengal. Important ports like Tamralipti. Port. Important port like Tamralipti. Tamralipti helped in having control of trade. And एक last point लिख लेना. The people of Magad, were Vedicized. Vedicized means they accepted Vedic religion. Were Vedicized later. The people of Magad were Vedicized later. And were seen in low esteem. Because of this, low esteem. Because of this, they showed more zeal for expansion of their kingdom. They showed more zeal for the expansion of their kingdom. They showed more zeal for the expansion of their kingdom. Zeal basically means enthusiasm. Zyada entho mein. More zeal for the expansion of their kingdom. Give the last heading of today's class. हाँ जी, ये हमने कल के क्लास में भी डिस्कस किया था, आज भी मैंने बताया. So she is asking कि last point का meaning क्या है. So what it basically means is that people of Aryavrat did not have enough respect for people of Magadha. The people of Magadha are called Magads or Kikats. Magad and Kikat are tribes which have accepted Vedic religion in the last. in the later part of later Vedic age. And because of that, they were often seen with low esteem, that you are not equal to us, right? And because of this, people of Magad had more to show, more to prove, that we are equal, not to perhaps only equal, but also superior. And how do you show that? By political expansion. So political expansion became a very important part to show their supremacy. Again, this as a theory has been propounded by R.S. Sharma. We do not have like any way of knowing that how, like what exactly was the role of that, but this is a theory propounded by R.S. Sharma. Okay, give this heading, Magad Empire. Now Magad Empire, I am going to talk about, there are 4 dynasties which ruled Magad Empire in ancient period. So the first dynasty is called Haranyak dynasty, the second dynasty is called Shishunak dynasty, the third dynasty is called Nand dynasty, and the fourth dynasty, which we will have a dedicated 1 or perhaps 1.5 class, will be Mauryan rule. बहुत important topic है. तो जो मौर्य डायनेस्टी या जो मौर्यन एम्पायर जब हम बात करते हैं, तो मौर्यन एम्पायर हम डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे अगले क्लास में. इन टुडेज क्लास आई एम ओनली गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट द फर्स्ट 3 डायनेस्टीज which ruled Magad. And why? So for example, I'm going to talk about some important names, important kings, and these kings, what exactly they are known for. So एक type of question, now I think we are at the stage where I should tell you that the type of questions you can expect in examination. So there are various types of question. One type of question can be a simple question of chronology, that UPSC will give you events and it will ask you that chronological order में आप इसको arrange करो, सबसे पहले क्या हुआ था फिर बाद में, and so that. अगर ऐसे question आपके ancient or medieval history से आते हैं, so a good thing here is that you do not have to remember year. You have to, even if you have information about which century we are talking about, in most of the cases your question will be answered. And another level of preparation which you can do is that you can also remember which part of the century, early or later. Early basically means, for example, if I am saying 3rd century, then I mean from 200 AD to 300 AD, right? So if I am saying early part of 3rd century, then I mean from 200 to 250, later part means 251 to 300. I hope you get the idea. So if you just remember that which part of century I am talking about, that should also be enough to answer lot of questions based on chronology, right? ये एक important theme है जो UPSC पूछती है. Second जो theme UPSC पूछती है वो होता है term based questions. There's a lot of terms I'm going to mention. I already have mentioned lot of terms notes में. बहुत सारे जब हम मौर्यन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में पढ़ेंगे, गुप्तास पढ़ेंगे, तो बहुत सारे टर्म्स हम डिस्कस करेंगे दैट दिस टर्म का ये कुछ मीनिंग है. अब ये टर्म्स जो है यूपीएससी किसी भी बुक से पिक कर लेती है. तो फ्रैंकली सच टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आई डू नॉट लाइक, बिकॉज these are very very factual questions, and because UPSC can pick any source, so how many sources you are going to study for 4-5 questions? That is why I said that reading R.S. Sharma is more than enough, right? उपिंदर सिंह चलो एक इंपॉर्टेंट टेक्स्ट बुक है, बट वो इतना बल्कि बुक है कि आप 4-5 क्वेश्चन के लिए उपिंदर सिंह क्यों पढ़ोगे आप, right? So lot of things which I find important from Upinder Singh textbook, I'm going to discuss in the classes. So I do not expect you to read that book, but those who have optional, of course, can go ahead and read Upinder Singh. That is a separate issue. That is second type of question. जो third type of question होगा वो होगा 3 टाइप के डेवलपमेंट पे, पॉलिटिकल डेवलपमेंट, इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट, सोशल डेवलपमेंट. अब इन सब में और चौथा जो टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन होगा, सो फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन आई एम सेइंग पॉलिटिकल डेवलपमेंट, अगेन kings are very very important personalities, but kings are not the only important personalities you need to remember. That if particular king I am talking about, why he is known for, like what are the important features or what exactly are major achievements that he should be remembered with. तो ये चीजें I am going to make you write lot of things, but kings are not the only important personality. Apart from kings and queens, you also need to remember important religious sages, जो भी religious development हो रहे, for example बुद्ध, महावीर, but इसके अलावा भी और भी sages, right? Similarly, even more important than that will be जो important work of literature है, who compiled it. So for example जो literary work है, that is a very very favorite theme of UPSC. That they are going to ask about a particular literary work. They can give you plot also. Sometimes they have given a plot in a paragraph and they have asked you that which book is being talked about here, right? And they can always ask questions like ye jo author hai, he belonged to this particular era. So for example, last year there was a question that Bhavbhuti belonged to court of Harshvardhan. That is a wrong statement, of course, but you can expect a question like that, that you have these important personalities belonging to literature such as drama, poetry, even let's say for example music, and they will ask you about their either time period or their contribution themselves. So all I'm saying is that kings are not the important personalities, not the only important personalities. Apart from that, you also need to remember about religious sages and जो literary work जिन्होंने भी compile करा है. So poets, dramatists, even like musicians, they are very very important for UPSC. तो ये भी एक type of question जो आप expect कर सकते हो, right? And apart from that, जो भी outstanding feature of something जो आप whatever you study, that always is important. So anyways, Magad was ruled by, before Mauryas it was ruled by 3 different dynasties, and this dynasty is also very very important. All the 3 dynasties are very important. The first is very important, so give this heading. First dynasty which ruled Magad was Haranyak dynasty. Haranyak dynasty. Now Haranyak dynasty ruled from about 544 BC to 412 BC. I should also tell you that in ancient India, finding exact year is always difficult. So at some places you will find ये 550 होगा या 540 होगा, that is totally fine. Right? जैसे for example जो बहुत सारे text है वो क्या करेंगे कि they will not even mention the exact year. They will give you this range that either it is 544 or 540. So if there is some mention of let's say 540 or 550, and in fact in subsequent all the themes, I'm not going to repeat it, that there will be some difference in the exact year. That is not important because exact year हमेशा उसको derive करना, we do not have lot of information, lot of times, तो ये हमेशा मुश्किल होगा, right? So the very first ruler of Haranyak dynasty is Bimbisar. And Bimbisar ruled from about 544 to 492 BC. 544 to 492 BC. Write down in bullet points. He was contemporary of Lord Buddha and Mahavir. He was contemporary of Lord Buddha and Mahavir. Lord Buddha and Mahavir. He maintained a standing army. He maintained a standing army. Standing army. And was the first king to start matrimonial alliances. To start matrimonial alliances to strengthen the position of his empire. To strengthen the position of his empire. Strengthen the position of his empire. This is also very important. One of the way people allied with another king, one kingdom allied with another kingdom, was through matrimonial alliances. Now Bimbisar is the first king in the Indian subcontinent region who started that. For example, he married princess of Koshal, he married a Lichvi princess also, he married one of the princes from Madra, from Matsya kingdom also. So he was the first king who started that, and after that we find of course many more instances. Write down next bullet point. He fought with Pradyot Mahasena of Avanti. He fought with Pradyot Mahasena of Avanti in one instance, write down, in one instance, he sent his court physician, Jivak, to Avanti when Pradyot was suffering from jaundice. To Avanti, his court physician Jivak, when Pradyot was suffering from jaundice. Pradyot was suffering from jaundice. So what it signifies is that there is a rival relationship between Avanti and Magad, but in the time of need, when king is sick, then Bimbisar sent his court physician Jivak to Avanti. And दूसरी चीज जो आपको इस पूरे लाइन से याद रखने की जरूरत है कि जीवक is a great name from Ayurveda. There are some names from Ayurveda which you should know. You have Jivak, you have Charak, you have Shushrut, you have Dhanvantri. These are some of the great names of Ayurveda. So Jivak is contemporary of Bimbisar. He is the court physician of Bimbisar. ये information भी आपको याद रहना चाहिए. Exact source, frankly, I'm not very sure. So what happens is that either from Buddhist or Jain text. The reason I'm saying is that Ashoka के लिए बहुत clear है that Ashoka patronized Buddhism. But जो Bimbisar and Ajatashatru, they patronized Jainism also, they patronized Buddhism also, they patronized Brahmins also. So all of the texts considered themselves to be, so for example, the Jain texts say that Bimbisar adopted Jainism, Buddhist text will say that Bimbisar adopted Buddhism, same is true for Ajatashatru also. So ये जो part है, either it is part of Buddhist text or Jain text. Exact कौन ये I do not remember that. So for example, it can be any text. It does not have to be Buddhist or Jain or Brahman. It can be either of that. That cannot be like a criteria to decide कि all the three religions talked about humanitarian assistance. Anyways, the next is Ajatashatru. So Ajatashatru ruled from 492 to 460 BC. ब्रैकेट में लिखना चाहो तो लिख सकते हो. From 492 to 460 BC. बाहुबली मूवी देखी है सबने? Right? You remember the chariot of Bhallal Dev? 460 BC. 492 to 460 BC. So you remember the chariot of Bhallal Dev? Right? So if you remember the chariot, this chariot has a mechanism that there is a scythe in front of the chariot, and as chariot moves faster, this scythe also moves and it starts killing people. As for example, the chariot moves in the enemy army, it starts killing people. Right? Similarly, I'm very sure in many movies you must have seen that stones are thrown from a mechanism to the enemy's army. That large piece of stones, there is a mechanism which lifts this large piece of stones and that is thrown to the enemy army. Ajatashatru is known for inventing both of these things. That a scythe mechanism, for example, scythe दो तरीके से आप यूज कर सकते हो. या तो आप जो chariot के जो wheels हैं दोनों साइड से आप blade लगाओ, so that if anyone is attacking from these two sides, these two flanks, you will be protected, or it can be at the front of, in front of the horses, so that as chariot moves, it will start killing people in the front of it, right? So these two mechanisms were adopted by, in fact invented by, certain texts mention that it was invented by Ajatashatru. Ajatashatru is also remembered that it is the first case in subcontinent region that a person has committed patricide. That means killing father to become the ruler. So Ajatashatru killed his father and becomes the next ruler. And because of that, whatever matrimonial alliances was there with Magad, many of the kings broke off those alliances with Magad, and Magad entered into enmity with other Mahajanpads and emerged victorious also. Right? So that is mainly because of his war strategy, Ajatashatru's war strategy. Certain texts mention that Ajatashatru actually does not kill his father, he only imprisons him. He sends him to jail, and because of that, so in fact Buddhist text mention this, that he sends him to jail, and when he realizes, so he sees his mother, and his mother is grief stricken, and he realizes that what he has done, and then he goes on to running towards his father to the jail, and Bimbisar thinks that he is coming to kill me, and he commits suicide. So so basically what this is an attempt basically to show some sort of humanity here, perhaps trying to ensure that Ajatasattu was not as bad as it has been portrayed because of patricide. And the reason why it has been done is that Ajatasattu became a great patron of Buddhism. So he was also contemporary to Buddha and Mahavir, and when Buddha dies, he organizes the first Buddhist council. There are 4 Buddhist council of ancient India which is mentioned. This Buddhist council basically included sages from across the region who came together, compiled the teaching of Buddhas, settled their debates and discussions on various issues, right? So first Buddhist council was organized by Ajatasattu. So maybe this is an attempt just to show that his crimes are portrayed in a wrong manner. But accepted theory is that he killed his father to become the king. Aap likh sakte ho? He occupied the throne by killing his father, Bimbisar. He occupied the throne by killing his father, Bimbisar. He was also contemporary of, he occupied the throne by killing his father Bimbisar. Killing. The accepted theory is killing. That he killed his father and he becomes the king. He was contemporary of both Buddha and Mahavir. He was contemporary of both Buddha and Mahavir. He convened the first Buddhist council at Rajgrih. He convened the first Buddhist council at Rajgrih soon after death of Mahatma Buddha. Soon after death of Mahatma Buddha. There is no exact date. Like for example, if your question is that exact year when it was, so we have to assume that it is just after death of Buddha, perhaps a year or 2 years after death of Buddha. He is presumed inventor of, write down, he is presumed inventor of 2 weapons. He is presumed inventor of 2 weapons. Rath Mushal, which basically is maced chariot. So maced chariot, as I told you, a scythe mechanism. A scythe mechanism is basically these blades, 2 or 3 or 4 blades in front of the chariot, that as chariot will move, these blades are going to decapitate or perhaps kill enemies. So Rath Mushal and Mahashila Kantak. महाशिला कंटक, अब ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना, an engine to throw large pieces of stones towards enemy. An engine to throw large pieces of stones towards enemies. इसी में एक पॉइंट लिख लेना, his son His son Udayin, in bracket you can mention from 460 to 444 BC. 444 BC, shifted the capital from Rajgriha to Patliputra. Shifted the capital from Rajgriha to Patliputra. Shifted the capital from Rajgriha to Patliputra. It's more than enough. The next dynasty which ruled Magad is called Shishunag dynasty. Hanji. Sorry? अभी थोड़ी देर पहले मैंने बताया था कि one of the reasons, so what historians believe is that because he felt that Rajgriha is vulnerable, especially from the attack of Avanti, because Avanti was a very powerful Mahajanapad at this period of time. So he felt that Rajgriha is vulnerable, even though it is surrounded by hills. There are areas where army can cross and they can capture the capital, and capital was the power center of any kingdom. The moment capital is captured, kingdom vanishes, dynasty comes to an end. So now Patliputra is protected by rivers from all sides, and contemporary kings at this point of time, people have not invested into naval warfare. Navy नहीं है लोगों के पास. तो जो rivers हैं, these rivers worked as waterfront for Magad. That Patliputra will be protected, because to attack Patliputra you have to have boats and ships, and then only Patliputra will be defeated. Right? So the main reason was that he feared an invasion from Avanti rulers, and he felt that Rajgriha is vulnerable because of this invasion. हाँ, अभी भी राजगीर बोलते हैं. So Rajgir is a very, very old name. Right? So the name has not changed, not changed much. The next dynasty which ruled is Shishunag dynasty. Give this heading. Now Shishunag dynasty ruled from 412 to 344 BC. Now there are two rulers which are important here. The first is Shishunag himself, and second is his son Kalashok. एक लाइन में बस लिख लेना यहाँ पे. Shishunag was minister of last Haranyak ruler Nagdasak. Shishunag was minister of last Haranyak ruler Nagdasak. He killed the king and set up his own dynasty. He killed the king and set up his own dynasty. So he killed Nagdasak, who is his king. He is a commander. He destroyed the power of Avanti. So that is two things you should know about Shishunag, founder of dynasty, and second is he destroyed the power of Avanti. That ended centuries old struggle between Magad and Avanti. That ended centuries old struggle between Magad and Avanti. Magad and Avanti. Next is Kalashok. Now Kalashok is known for only one thing. He convened the second Buddhist council. Write down. He was son of Shishunag. And is known for conducting the second Buddhist council at Vaishali. conducting the second Buddhist council at Vaishali. Vaishali was already part of Magad now. And before Mauryas, the third dynasty which ruled is Nanda dynasty. Now, Nanda dynasty ruled from about 344 to 321 BC. And again, there is a very interesting story regarding the origin of Nanda dynasty. It is said that the first ruler of Nanda dynasty was Mahapadmanand, and Mahapadmanand was one of the illegitimate son of Kalashop, and he belonged to a lower social class. Because of that, he was not given the due recognition and respect by Kalashop. So he killed his own father and becomes the next ruler, and because of that, he also develops a sort of contempt for people of upper classes. And that contempt is passed on to even his son, who is Dhananand, and Dhananand is now contemporary of Chanakya. And as the story goes, that when Chanakya comes to Patliputra and tells Dhananand that he is a learned scholar, he can help in administration. So and Chanakya is not a very good looking person. So Dhananand ridicules him because of his looks, and he basically says that he does not need any help. But more than that, he insults Chanakya, and Chanakya takes that insult on personal level. Then he goes on to find a reliable suitor, a reliable successor who can defeat Dhananand, and a new dynasty can come into existence. And he does find Chandragupta Maurya, trains him. Chandragupta Maurya attacks Patliputra, becomes the next ruler, and becomes the founder of Maurya dynasty. So Maurya dynasty I am going to talk about in the next class. But before that, just write down, the first ruler is Mahapadmanand. Mahapadmanand. Write down, he was founder of Nanda dynasty. He was founder of Nanda dynasty and became the most powerful ruler of subcontinent. Became the most powerful ruler of subcontinent. Became the most powerful ruler of subcontinent. He took the title of Ekrat. Now Ekrat will translate into the sole sovereign. Sole sovereign basically means that there is none who can stand against him, that he is the only sovereign ruler. All other rulers have accepted his authority. बाकी सब ये एक तरीके से हम बोल सकते हैं कि he considered himself to be emperor, that he is emperor, and जो भी बाकी के kings हैं, they have accepted his authority. So he took the title of Ekrat. Now Mahapadmanand has 9 sons, but so one of the theory was that Nanda dynasty had 10 rulers because 10 nuns are given in certain text. But now historians actually believe that it is actually not 10 nuns. They are 9 sons of Mahapadmanand. So the second ruler is Dhananand. Write down, he was one of the sons of Mahapadmanand. He was one of the sons of Mahapadmanand. He became unpopular. He became unpopular because of oppressive taxation. He became unpopular because of oppressive taxation. Oppressive taxation. He insulted Chanakya. He insulted Chanakya. He insulted Chanakya. A learned Brahman. A learned Brahman who took it as a personal challenge to overthrow him. Who took it as a personal challenge to overthrow him. Overthrow him. And एक last point लिख लेना in next paragraph. Such was the might of Magad Empire. Such was the might of Magad Empire under Mahapadmanand. Such was the might of Magad Empire under Mahapadmanand. Mahapadmanand. That the army of Alexander refused to attack Magad, refused to attack Magad after defeating Porus. Army of Alexander refused to attack Magad after defeating Porus. Next class I'm going to talk about first two sets of invasions which occurred into India, Persian invasion and Greek invasion by Alexander. But जो major topic होगा that will hardly take like 15-20 minutes or half an hour. But जो major topic होगा that will be Mauryas, जो Mauryan Empire है.